Okay, welcome, welcome. Hello, good morning, ladies. This is Tuesday, and this is Tuesday with Taylor, and I have a beautiful special guest here doing a interview live with you today. So as you're coming on, let us know you're here, let us know your name, and keep in mind that we are using the StreamYard platform. So just look up above, and there's a little link there that allows you we can see who you are. So just click allow, so that gives them permission to share your name, so we can see who's making this comment. So if this is your first time on, let us know. Hey, Michelle, welcome. Glad you're here. Let us know if this is your replay. But this is an interview that I'm so excited about. I have a really special, beautiful guest here on today. So I'm going to take a few minutes and introduce her. So I had the opportunity to meet her, as I do, and connect with so many amazing people at live events. I love live events. I'm such a social butterfly, and I got connected through Lynn, through Ray and Jess Higdon. You know, they're such great connectors. Love them, dear friends. And so Lynn, we met, and I loved your smile. I loved your energy. And first, ladies, I wanted you to give us, I want to give a big shout out. That's my dog, Layla. Oh. So Lynn just celebrated 7 years with her and her husband, 7 years married. So you guys give them some hearts and loves. Yesterday, they had their wedding anniversary. So congrats to you both.
Thank you.
So I just want to thank you for taking out time to be here and share your wisdom and share your journey and share your story with the ladies, because as you know, sharing her excellence, you know, I say this all the time, but it's always in the journey that makes us who we are and what we are today, what our value system is, what our characters are, and what we believe in. So, and I just want to make one disclaimer here. Lynn, if I go off and my internet goes away, just keep talking. I'll be right back on. So
okay.
In this quarantine time, I've been so used to like popping off and so don't freak out. Just keep talking. Okay. So how are you today?
I'm fantastic. I'm excited, you know, coming off of celebrating with my husband yesterday. I'm still on a high from that. So I'm doing really well.
I love that. So you were telling, now you guys live in Georgia, right?
We do. We live in Atlanta.
Awesome. So lots of fun stuff going on. I have lots of friends in Atlanta, so I love Atlanta. So let's dive right in. Let's talk about this, because I know that, and some of you ladies, we just got through celebrating a big win for Lynn and her team just a couple of months ago. Actually, was it 2 months? I mean, time
in March.
It was in March. Okay, so what's pretty recent. So we'll dive into that and we'll get to that. But you know, there was a lot of tears on the pillow to get you to that point. So let's talk about how you got there and this whole story. So tell us about you.
Okay. So I'm originally from Boston, born and raised in Boston, Mass. I was the youngest of 4 children. My mom was a single parent. And I had 2 sons at a really young age. I had my first son when I was 16. Wow. And my second son when I was 18. So I had 2 kids by the time I was 18 years old. Wow. So I started working. I had an after-school job at the age of 16, and I've been working ever since. So yeah, so I was working, doing the best that I could as a single parent. And one of the things that I would say for me is that I realized this later on is that I didn't grow up with very good money mindset, and I don't know, who else kind of grew up not knowing how to manage money, not learning it, at home.
Yeah.
And they don't teach it in school.
I know, but Lynn, I mean, you say that, you may think that you're alone in that, but I will tell you, I think that is more common than what we realize. I really don't think that, I mean, the more women that I talk to, I really don't believe that any of us were truly raised with the right money mindset. First of all, how to deal with money, how to manage money, and just the mere virtue, our connection and our relationship with money. I think that I don't think you're alone in that process, but let's keep talking, because this is good, great information.
Yeah. So, I didn't realize that. I think I just, you just kind of perpetuate the cycles that you see growing up. And so I did some of the same things. I got into credit card debt and, bought things that I couldn't really afford, not knowing I can't afford those things. Right. And, lived paycheck to paycheck for a while. I ended up going through a layoff at one point, and
what was your background? What kind of job did you have? Did you go to college, or did you?
So I did go to college, didn't finish, didn't graduate. And I did like 3 years and then stopped because I was doing it, kind of piecemealing it together because I had 2 kids. Yeah. And so I was doing a lot of it, working full time. And at some points I was working full time and taking a full time course load, trying to, get finished. But, it was just challenging. Yeah. And making no excuses, because I know a lot of people do it, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, and so I did a lot of administrative work in the very beginning, and then started, doing kind of office management, administrative services, that sort of stuff. And so, yeah, went through that layoff. And by that point, I had purchased a home already, and so I was really feeling like it was kind of like I was teeter-tottering, right? Because sometimes I was doing the right thing with money, saving and buying the house. And then other times, like once I got in the house, I was trying to do too much too fast, trying to furnish the house and do, so just wasn't making some really great choices sometimes, and ended up going through a layoff. And it took me a really long time to get another job. And I ended up going through my savings, lost the home. So I went through foreclosure, I battled foreclosure, repossession, bankruptcy, and then homelessness at one point, with 2 kids.
Wow. Okay. So, wow, that's a lot to metabolize right there. I mean, like, first of all, being a single mom, I know what I understand. I get that one. I was a single mom of 3. And knowing the struggle and knowing that the responsibilities at your feet, knowing the pressures, the financial pressures, all of the things, and especially with boys, not having a father figure.
Absolutely.
With boys, I think that would be a challenge in and of itself. And then being the sole provider, and then going through a layoff. I mean, how the mindset to go through all of those things now, and you get down to what do you do whenever you're homeless with 2 kids? What does that look like?
So for me, fortunately, it wasn't actually on the street, but it was a few nights at this friend's and then another few nights at that friend's. And it, so it was, because no one really at that time, no one had enough room to take in 3 people kind of indefinitely, so yeah. It was, staying with someone for a week and then finding somewhere else to stay for another week. And so that's kind of what I did for a while.
That had to have played a major impact on your mindset, how you saw yourself, how you perceived yourself, being responsible for these 2 kids, and the what you had to the mental challenge of going through that and the pressure. So how long did you walk through that?
It was, so the entire process, was over a couple of years, that the money struggles, and all of that. Having to stay with people was a matter of a few months.
Okay. And so were you able to get a job, and then,
slowly got a new job. And then, and then my sons were teenagers at the time. And so it was just, it's just really difficult because, you start feeling like you're failing.
Yeah.
At the one thing, like as a mom, especially as a single mom, you feel like I have one job. You know what I mean? Like I have one job. Yeah. And when you get to a point where you're feeling like I have one job and I'm failing at this one job, not a good place to be.
Now, were your boys, was their father involved at all in their lives, or was it just it's completely you? And you had no family structure or no support system that you could turn?
So I had family, but no one that had the room or the space or even the resources themselves.
Yeah.
To help out during that time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow. And then get a job, and then how do you bounce back from that? Because once you go through foreclosure and now you have no credit.
Exactly.
Your credit is destroyed. So how do you even get back? How do you go through that process to get back on your feet?
fortunately, I mean, the friends that were, and some friends we went back to, like we stayed a couple of weeks and then left, and then we're able to go back to that person's house for a little while. But because my credit was shot, when I finally was able to get someone to rent to me so that I could get an apartment, now you're looking at higher deposit, all that sort of stuff, all those things that come with, the not having decent credit. And so that's what we had to do. We had to stay, with people until, when I found a job, and then was able to start putting some money away to be able to get into a place.
Wow. What a tough.
And then, and then it's everything, because it's not just the apartment, because then it's the utilities, right?
Yeah.
And, because now every single utility company, they want an additional deposit as well to turn things on, and then of course, and I know I had outstanding utility bills from, because, right, if you can't pay your mortgage, like the other things, those are the last things, to get paid if you're not paying, your mortgage. So
yeah, wow. Okay, so now that you're overcoming this, and then now you've got everybody, or you start putting the pieces back together. So what comes next? What happens next for you?
I was working for just in a few different jobs, just each time trying to find something that's better. Because, when you're in that position, you take whatever comes. And so I just kind of took the first thing that came, which wasn't paying a whole lot. And it wasn't necessarily something that I wanted to do, but I went ahead and because it was going to help me get out of that situation. And then, so I kind of jumped around a little bit as I was trying to really get my footing.
Yeah.
And so I ultimately, I started working for a small business here. And I was there, I guess, about 6 or 7 years when, one of my girlfriends introduced me to the company that I'm with. And I'll tell you, my initial thought was I didn't want to do network marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And, but,
last words, by the way, famous last words, right?
Absolutely.
So what did you have a preconceived idea about it and what it would look like, or like what were your thoughts about it? One
of the things I thought was that I was going to have to hound my family and friends, and I didn't want to do that. I thought that it was going to feel like a second job. And, to be completely honest, I didn't love the one I already had. Yeah. So I wasn't looking for a second one. Mm-hmm. I think one of the other things that I thought about it was that, from what I had seen or thought was that, the people that kind of get started first.
Yeah.
If it's a company, you get started first, then you're straight. Right. But if not, and then I think the other thing that I thought about it was, they put out these great compensation plans, and, it's like you can earn, $1 million if you can do ABC, but if ABC is impossible to do, what difference does it make how much you can make if you do ABC, right? And so I had all these thoughts in my head. But one of the things, when I met my husband, I was still coming out of, I was in a better position financially, but I still had a lot of debt. Mm-hmm. Right. So I still had a lot of debt. And so I was on that road to trying to, get rid of the debt that we had. He had some, I had over $100,000 worth of debt at one point. Wow. And so,
it had to seem like a insurmountable mountain. How do you eat that elephant, right? How do you overcome that, right? So did you start your business before you met your husband, or was it simultaneous?
No, after. Yeah, we got married in 2013, and I started my business in 2016.
Okay. So you and him were married. So you guys came together. You're still in the struggle. He's still in the struggle. Now, were your boys still at home with you?
No, my sons are now 31 and 33. So they had left the house, years before. So they've never, lived with us together as a couple.
Okay. And so now you're in this business. So you start this business. So what was the catalyst? What made you move? Because you had this preconceived idea. What was it that made you take the step forward to say, okay, I'm going to do this? What was it? Do you remember?
So there are a couple of things. One, the realization that you can't be broke and skeptical all at the same time.
That's really good. I love that. You can't be broke and skeptical at the same time. Okay.
Yeah. That was one thing, and interestingly enough, my old boss, who hates the fact that I left because I was the, top salesperson at that company. He actually was the catalyst. Sometimes, something happens and you're just like, that's the last straw. And so I was in this position where I was, I was getting paid salary plus commissions. Mm-hmm. And when I first took the job, it was just salary. And he kept telling me he was going to put together this commission structure. And I waited, 3 years for him to do it, trying to help him, grow this business. And
what kind of business was it, if you don't mind me asking?
No, absolutely. So he it's a small business that sells food service, disposable products, cleaning, janitorial supplies. So all the paper goods that you would see at like a, restaurant or any type of, airport, wherever. And so
you came on as his sales force to help him build and grow his business.
Yep. And so, of course, I brought on a bunch of different, customers, restaurants here and, the local jail. And, so they were using a supplier already. And my job was to go in and see if I could get them to use us as their supplier so that we would supply their toilet tissue and paper towels or straws or napkins, whatever that is.
So you were basically a network marketer without getting paid for it. Right? Let's talk about that, right? I mean, you were doing the job without the pay. That's
exactly without knowing.
Yeah.
And so I was, I was working to really get better at that job, and so then he finally put together the commission structure. And one of the things I ended up finding out at the end of a year was, he had put all these benchmarks in place. Like I would get this bonus if I hit this benchmark, and then they were quarterly, it was annually, but I didn't have access to the reports. He wouldn't give me access to the reporting. So how do you have a sales job and not have access to the reports and know how much you're selling, right? But I'm a novice in sales, so I don't know that I should have had access to that.
Well, crushing it, and
when I was, Taylor, and had no idea, because when you take one order here and another order here and another order here, I'm not holding on to all of the invoices and adding them up. I'm just thinking he's going to tell me if I meet these benchmarks. And it wasn't until towards the end of the year that the office manager came to me and showed me the reports and said, and so out of 4 quarters, I had crushed it 3 of them.
And so he gave you these benchmarks. You surpassed the benchmarks, and he didn't
pay me
after he promised that he would do.
Oh, yeah, I had the contract and everything. Yeah. And so I had to bring it to him. And once I brought it to him, then he didn't have a choice. Now he did wiggle out, like he used some loopholes in his wording to wiggle out of some of the payment, but he couldn't wiggle out of all of it. And he didn't have the money to pay me. So he ended up having to space it out over the next like 6 months and give it to me in off pay weeks. And so so now, of course, I don't feel so warm and fuzzy about him or that job anymore. Wow. And my girlfriend ended up following up with me during that time.
So this is really interesting because this is, Larry and I teach a concept about you, it, and them. And this right here is one of those things that, it's not about getting people to do it. It's about getting people to want to do it. And so sad for him that if he would have just done a right thing in a right manner and stood by his word, stood by his integrity, by what he shared with you.
Absolutely.
The dynamics of that conversation with you and your girlfriend may have never took place.
Exactly. And he's never, because I'm friends with the office manager. He's never, I mean, I was crushing his numbers. And she's told me, she was there longer than I had been. He's never had anyone that produced as much as I did. And he has not had anyone since.
Right. Because, you gotta pay. I mean, fair rewards. I mean, the marketplace pays for value. I've always lived by that. The marketplace pays for value. And when you bring value, you should get paid. So too bad for him. So your girlfriend followed up with you in this process. And so now, so this is a really great lesson, ladies, because right here, most of the time, like, first of all, the fact that she followed up,
yeah,
right? That's one thing, because you said no at first because you had a idea. But what happens in these kind of situations? No can mean not right now, because you never know when somebody's set of circumstances are going to change. You never know. So whenever you position it where you leave the door open, right? That bridge. So knowing that circumstances always change.
Right.
And you weren't open at the time because you weren't dissatisfied enough. Most people don't move typically out of money or whatever. They move because they're dissatisfied with something in their life, which causes them to raise their hand and make a move forward toward you. So this is so good about these nuggets. So whenever she followed up, how did she follow up with you? What did she say? And how did you feel in that moment?
And I want to add, the other thing is that not only did she follow up, but she took me off the table for anyone else, because I had someone else after she reached out to me. I had an old friend from Boston that was in the same company that ended up reaching out to me. And I told him no as well, because I wasn't interested at the time. When my girlfriend then, so she followed up with me and wanting me to watch a video. And I didn't tell her yes right then, but I told her yes, I would watch the video. Prior to that, I wasn't even open to even looking at it, entertaining it. And so then I told her that I would, and it was probably, still a couple of weeks, but then, I just called out of the blue. I called her one day and I said, all right, sign me up.
Okay, I love this. This is so great, because, like, whenever I was building a team and building orders, that was the way I always, whenever somebody said no, I always said, okay, well, no problem. But if circumstances ever change, please keep me in mind.
Exactly.
Always keeping that door open for me to for them to follow up with me, but for me to follow up with them.
Yeah.
Right? And so whenever you watch the video, you said, okay, sign me up. Was she falling out of her chair in that moment? Like,
she was. But interestingly enough, Taylor, I told her that I would sell the product, but I would not do the network marketing side.
Okay. How many times have I heard that phrase? Like, I don't think I have enough hairs on my head to cover that phrase. Famous last words. I'll use your product. I'll sell your product, but I'm not recruiting anybody.
Exactly. And that's exactly what I said. I said, don't call me about any conference calls, any meetings, nothing. I'm not doing any of that.
I love it. I love it. Famous last words. I love it. I love this. And okay, so you signed up because you were wanting the opportunity. So you hadn't even tried the product that they were selling at that time. So you had no idea how you even felt about the product or service, right?
Well, because I had it. So are you okay with me saying our product is travel?
Yeah.
I guess I just said it. But so I like, I've traveled before, right? So I hadn't used their specific company, but it was something that I enjoy doing. So I was like, if nothing else, I'm already doing that, so I should be okay. But I'm not going to talk to anybody else. I'm not recruiting anyone. I'm not, and really, to be honest, my initial thought was, okay, let me use it for me. I don't know about selling it to anyone else yet, but let me at least use it for me and see how that goes.
I love that. Well, and Larry and I teach a concept we call use, talk, demo. So no matter whatever you're representing, you have to use your product. You have the product of your product. in order to have a conversation about it, right? So that's how you got started. So whenever you use the product, and so how did you take the step forward? What did you do? Whenever you started, like how long did it take for you to start making money?
It was a little, it was maybe the very first thing my husband and I wanted to do was use it. So we wanted to take a trip, and the price was really good. And my sister in Boston, and she and her husband wanted to come, and I could get the same price for them, and they came. Well, then I have a bonus daughter. She's like best friends with my son since they were in elementary. So she wanted to come, and I could only get that price for the two of us, my husband and I, and then my sister and her husband. And so she was like, well, if I get started, can I come for that price? I'm like, I guess. I'm very unconcerned with whether or not anyone does it, right? Because that's not what I'm looking to do. But so that was the first amount of money that I made, because she decided to get started just so she could come on that trip with us.
Okay.
And then my son, who's friends with her, saw her do it. And then he was like, well, tell me about that, because I wasn't telling anyone, right? Yeah. And so then I gave him some information, then he got started, and I got paid again.
Wow.
And then I ended up having another girlfriend who, I don't know, maybe just in casual conversation, I said something about it. And so I ended up getting a call from a gentleman who, is my upline. I had no idea. I didn't even know him at the time. And he reached out to me on Facebook Messenger and asked me if I would give him a call. He had tried to get my number from my girlfriend, and she wouldn't give it to him.
I love it.
Because she said we've been friends since the first grade. So, and she knows me.
Can't call her, because she ain't gonna respond to you.
Leave her alone, right? That was her message to him, was leave her alone. She doesn't want to do the network marketing side. And she knows that, if you irritate me, I won't even do this side, right? So, anyway, so he comes to me through Messenger and asks me if I will give him a call. I call him, and he's like,
So did he just say, give me a call, or did he introduce?
He told me who he was. Yeah. And I think I had heard his name before. I just, at that point, I hadn't been on any calls, but I think my girlfriend had mentioned his name before and stuff. And so, so he told me, who he was, like his rank in the company, that sort of thing, and put his number and asked me to call him. And so I did. And, he said, I just want 5 minutes of your time. And I said, okay, go. You have 5 minutes. Like, really, I was very, very, let's go, because I'm not interested in what you're selling, is what I'm thinking. Yeah. And he said, I wanted to talk to you about the marketing side of the business. And I said, I'm not doing that. And he goes, you have about 3 or 4. So by this point, it was like 3 or 4 people on my team. And I'm like, team? I don't have a team. Because in my mind, I'm not growing a team.
Right.
This is my son who was interested, and that person who, like, they're interested in the business, but I'm not growing a team, and I'm not doing any coaching, training, developing. It's every man for himself at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. And so isn't that interesting? Like, I think we all have those preconceived ideas, like you have to be in that mindset that you have to chase after people and be mechanical in what you do. Yeah. And you were doing it. It was natural. So you were like, okay, so this is natural. It's not uncomfortable if I just talk about what I'm doing, and you can do it too. I don't care if you do or not.
Right.
I'm just doing this. I'm using my product. So that's why I was like, you have to use your product. If you don't, you have nothing to have a conversation about. And so what was it about that conversation that you were like, did that make you step back and go?
So listening to him, like, some of what he said made sense. And then he encouraged me to go to, we had a major Super Saturday coming up that weekend, and it was in Atlanta. And he asked me, if he could get me to go, and he encouraged me to go to the event. And I was blown away. I was blown away by the culture, by the people that I met. It was professional. They seemed genuine, that sort of stuff. And that was the other thing. I had gone to, I had been invited to events before for different companies. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that, when you go through financially some of what, I've gone through, like, you're not impressed by the Bentleys and the, all that sort of stuff. Right. And so And that's what I would hear people talk, I'd hear them talking about, all these things, and it was rah. It was just a bunch of fluff at some of the ones that I had been to before. And so that was the other thing that I kind of had in my mind about network marketing.
Yeah. But that's interesting, because that's something that Larry and I really, really are very outspoken that we talk against. Because, that's not the network marketing that we've known or grew up with. It's always been about the average person's best chance.
Yeah.
And so whenever you start talking about things that sound unattainable, whenever you're talking about something that to the person, i.e. yourself, that can't pay their mortgage,
right?
You're talking to them about a Bentley, and they're like, there's so much disconnect. There's no identification. There's no human connection that they understand the pain that you're experiencing. And I think, to your point, that's where a lot of people go awry and go by the wayside because they speak the wrong language to the wrong audience.
Yeah.
And so I love the fact that you are open to go, because I love events from that in that way, because I always think that it's such a great way for people to, one, get a bigger picture. Bigger picture outside of this little tunnel vision that this idea that they have.
Right.
It gives them exposure to the possibilities, because to your point, we were raised with a mindset, and we don't know what we don't know. We don't know about, wait, what? Like, this is possible for somebody like me? Really? And so I think there's so many facets that we could talk about from just that experience that I think that I love about network marketing. I love about what we do. So after that event, what changed for you? How did you come back, and what did you do differently whenever you came home?
There are a couple of things that happened after that. The first thing, I thought, and Mark with me, my husband went with me, and we heard just so many genuine messages, like from the stage, make it, save it, invest it, just because you're making,
make it, save it. I'm going to
make it, save it, invest it. That's something that, we heard that was like the common theme, just because you're making X amount of dollars a month doesn't mean you need to have an X amount of dollar lifestyle. Let the Bentley dealer wait. Don't drive around in your kid's college education. It was these really amazing messages that I hadn't heard when I had gone to an event like that before.
Right.
And so I was
practical. They give you practical, down to earth people.
Exactly. And that's what I saw, not pretentious. No one was, really caring about rank and how much money they were making. They were very, very, very down to earth and approachable. And so we met a lot of great people that seemed, sincere and authentic. And so that was what happened. And so that was the first thing. So, my thought process was kind of like, okay, if this is what I've been able to accomplish kind of unwillingly, right? What could I get done if I were purposeful?
Yeah.
And intentional. And so that was the first thing. So then I happened to call my brother, Taylor, who one of my best friends, and, he and his wife, they travel extensively. And so I thought, I'm going to call him. And when I called him, he told me that, he had bought a product similar to what I sell from a different company 2 years prior. And I was offended. Because he had never mentioned it to me.
Wow.
And I thought and I was like, well, what if I wanted that? You've never mentioned it. And he said, well, we don't do the business. Like they're not network marketing. They only use it for their own personal, they have it for their own personal use. And I said, well, what if I just wanted it for my own personal use? And he said, well, I hadn't thought about that. And initially I was so offended. And then I had to do that gut check and realize that was the same exact thing I was about to do to everyone that I knew.
Wow. This is really such a great lesson here, Lynn. Such a great lesson that so many people miss. And, whenever you have something of value And Larry taught me. I learned this in the millionaire training, and it was called the gold mine attitude that he teaches. And it's this mindset that if you had a gold mine and they could go get as much gold as they wanted. There's a big long story that goes with it, but the nugget is when you tell the people that you love and care about the most first, right? And not only that, when you want everybody to know about it, and keeping it for yourself. And so many people they can't get out of their own way because they don't realize that the message it's about the message and not the messenger.
Yeah.
And that was such a great gut check for you.
It was incredible. Yeah.
I can see already your mind just did a 180 about everything.
It was amazing. It was just because it in that moment, like I said, I realized that I was about to do the same exact thing to people that I knew. And I didn't like the feeling that I had, feeling like he didn't think enough of me.
Wow.
To even mention it.
Yeah. It changes everything. It changes your perspective, right? It changes it. Yeah. Makes it about the person and not you.
Yeah.
That what a great lesson. So then what happened?
So then it was like, I'm going to reach out to everyone. And I knew that I didn't want to, I didn't want to hound anyone. I wasn't going to chase them. But my feeling was I never want anyone to feel the way I felt talking to my brother. I never want anyone to later on feel like, I can't believe you found something that was absolutely incredible and you didn't think enough of me to even tell me about it.
Wow.
And so my feeling was, I'm going to tell you. I don't care if you do it or not. I have no emotional attachment to your yes or no, but I am going to tell you about it. And so I started on that journey and I went through my phone and literally it was, I'm going to reach out to everyone.
There's such a great nugget in this. So many teaching nuggets in this, ladies, like this right here, because so many people are so attached to the result instead of focused on the activity. If you focus on the activity and the message, the results are inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
And not being married to the outcome. Don't care about the results. And sometimes have it shifted. They want the results, but they're not willing to focus on the activity to get the result.
Right. And what I learned, Taylor, is that when you focus on the result, and when you don't get the result that you think you should get by a certain period of time, then what happens? You start getting frustrated, you start getting discouraged, and then you have less activity. So less activity is always going to yield less result. If you weren't getting the result you wanted with the activity you already had, what do you think you'll get with less activity?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that piece right there, like that one will preach, my dear friend. But the other, to your point, where a lot of people get derailed is whenever if they go in activity and they don't get the result, then they start taking offense to themselves and they start thinking, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not strong enough. I don't have what it takes. I don't know enough. They don't realize that it's not about them. It's the other person, right? You can't take it personal because everybody goes through it. This is just part of what network marketing is, right?
And like the server that, is walking around the restaurant, checking on each of our tables and saying, would you like the slice of pie?
Yeah.
Right. And the people who say, no, I don't want any pie, they go on to the next table just to get the next order. But the server is not feeling like I'm a failure because they didn't want any pie, or, maybe I'm not good at this, or wanting to quit because no one wanted pie.
Larry uses that analogy. The analogy of the guy that, the little skinny nerd that goes to the dance club, and he's out there always dancing on the floor. Why? Because he just goes down to the table with all the pretty girls and he goes like, do you want to dance? Do you want to dance? Do you want to dance? Until he gets somebody who says, yeah, I'll dance with you. And he's like, okay. So he's always asking, and he's always the one on the dance floor. So,
right.
You just have to ask the question. So this started for you. So when did you started in 2016? 2016?
I started the business in 2016. Mark and I had started our, journey towards, our getting rid of our debt and all of that. We started that, I would say, probably the year that we got married, in 2013. Mm-hmm. And, and it took some time because, like I said, I had over 100,000 and he had a small amount, but, I had way more than he did. And so, we really just started trying to, chip away at that. And when I first started with my company, I didn't quit my job right away. And so because, we both were working, we used the income that started coming in from the business to throw it at our debt.
Wow.
We didn't pull it into the household at all.
And what a great, to your point, make it, save it, invest it. I mean, so that's, and so tell us about what's happened over the last, because I know, we talked about, like, you just got through celebrating, you had a big win just this last, in March. We celebrated you here in the network. Big congratulations.
Thank you.
So was this the top rank of your company?
No, nope, not the top rank. So one of the things that the founder of my company feels like there's not enough transparency in network marketing sometimes. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes people are saying that they're making a certain amount that they're not actually making. And so he just has different kind of, benchmarks. So when you get to the point where you are earning over $100,000 annually, then you get a sapphire ring. And so at 250,000, you get, a ruby ring, and then you get different things at different levels. And so that was the first level. Wow.
But still amazing. I mean, like, and to your point, I mean, this is such a great, we see it on social media. There's so many things which is bolstered and exaggerated. And the truth of the matter is it's not necessary, because this day and time and, what people are looking for, if you can show somebody how to make $500,
oh my gosh,
a month extra, you're winning. And they're winning. So to be celebrated, to start a business in that time frame, just within that short amount of time, to be making six figures is phenomenal.
Thank you.
Like, so do y'all do this full time now?
My husband's still working. I did, I do it full time. So I did leave the company that I was with, but my husband's still working.
Okay. But you still do the business together?
Yes. Yeah. We still do it together. So we, like, during the week, it's mostly me, because he's a truck driver and he's home every night, but he has, 14, 15-hour days. So during the week, it's mostly me, but like on the weekends, he does events with me. Yeah. Excuse me, that sort of stuff.
So that's great to have that kind of support.
Oh my gosh.
With a husband-wife duo team.
It's incredible.
That kind of connection, something that you do together, something that you believe in together, that you can see your future in together. I love that kind of, so many women, that have success. I always give credit to the husband, even if he doesn't do the business, but the fact that he's supportive.
Absolutely.
I think that's such an integral part of the business that I always give the man credit for sure. Yeah. Because it would be impossible for you to do that or have success if you didn't have that kind of support network, coming from home.
Yeah. And that's what, we had to have those conversations, in the very beginning, because as I was, building the business, how it is. You're on webinars and, calls even before, we're on way more webinars now, I think, than we ever have been, right? Because we can't meet in person, but we were doing the webinars and the Facebook Lives and the, IGTVs and all that sort of stuff. And so, and so that's it's a, kind of different dynamic, for, if you start along and you always have date nights and you're spending all this time together. And then now, you're spending time with this team that you're growing and developing and that sort of stuff. And so sometimes, the spouse can kind of feel either left out or neglected. And, so we had to have those conversations, and I had to get his buy-in.
I love it. That's such a great point. And it's such a great thing that everybody must go through. Buy-in from your house, or your spouse, buy-in from your children. Because there is there is time. We only have so much time, and it has to be divided or balanced, or, you have to have that juggling act that women do, because we wear so many different hats. We have so many people and so many demands on us as women that sometimes men don't always have or can appreciate. So wise of you to have that conversation on the get-go. So I mean, as the ladies are listening here, what advice would you give? What kind of wisdom would you give them today that they can walk away with to for their business? What kind of, what gift would you give them just for today that you would pour into them?
One of the things that I saw this quote a while ago, and, it basically said, and I'm sure I'm not saying it verbatim, but basically, when you've been blessed, don't just raise your standard of living, raise your standard of giving.
Ooh.
And I will say throughout, that's one of the things that stuck with me. I think sometimes, when that money mindset, it can make you feel like I don't have enough to give. So, but if your hand is so clenched, nothing can come out, but nothing can come in either. And so that was always like, my feeling was, always like, I still need to, continue to tithe. I still need to, even when you feel like you have nothing, it's so important to continue to bless others. And I think that was one of the things that stuck with me and that I really had to learn.
So this is such a great money mindset. So, you mentioned something that I totally wholeheartedly believe in, and that's tithing. So, I mean, and so for those who don't know what that is, it's because I think God has a standard of financial principles to live by. That's me. I mean, obviously your standard too. And it's 10%. It's 10% off the first of what you receive. And, I've always, and I wrote this down, Lynn. So this is really, really such a great quote. Don't raise your standard of living, raise your standard of giving. So to that point, I've always lived by the phrase of, you can't outgive God. And so, and it may leave your hand, but it never leaves your life. Mm-hmm. And so that money mindset, plays such a big role in, as you're given and as you're blessed, we're blessed to be a blessing. And so tell me how the fruits of that have manifested for you. Give me like a couple of tangibles that you've seen.
So one of the first things I can tell you is my husband and I are completely debt-free now. Which is coming from where, I came from to, like, it's just so incredible, to think it, to be able to say it, and it was a long journey. But one thing that I will say is that I feel like once I changed that mindset, I've never had to want for anything again. Once I got out of that place, right? Don't get me wrong. Things may have been tight at different points, but I was never lacking what I needed ever again.
And when did you learn that nugget? What point in this journey did you learn that money mindset?
So, interestingly enough, a lot of times when you fall on hard times, and I don't know, this definitely was me, you go seek God first, right? Because you're like, what am I doing? Like, I need to hear from you, right? Because clearly there's some things I'm doing wrong for me to be in this position, right?
Right.
And so it was during that time that I started, going to church more and Bible study more, and, and really trying to seek him, see his face, really hear from him. And so it was during that time. And those were some of the things that I would hear when I'm there. Like, I know you feel like, you don't have enough, but you have more than enough. You always have more than enough. Continue to be a blessing to others. And so it was during that time that I was, hearing that and so while I hadn't feeling like I had nothing, I was in church tithing.
I mean, it goes to the widow's mite, right? I mean, whenever she gave it all, I mean, the mite, all that she had, and Jesus points out that, she gave more than all of you.
Right.
So so many great money mindset principles in the scripture. I love that. Okay. So let's talk about, so I've got your quotes. So is there like a book, a mindset book or something that you use? Do you use like as a go-to, or do you have something that you're reading currently right now that's like, oh my gosh, everybody needs to know about this book? Do you have something you want to share with us?
So I know that, I go back and forth to 21 Irrefutable Laws, as well as 10 Distinctions Between the Millionaire and Middle Class.
Okay.
Those two books, I think. And the second one I mentioned, I probably have them on my shelf. I could show them, but the second one, it's a short book, so it's a short read, but it's really good to go back, after you've read something, it's always so good to go back. And I love, 21 Irrefutable Laws, because like whenever I read that first chapter, Law of the Lid, over again, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like you keep hearing something new, and understanding that you have to keep raising your lid.
Well, and what happens is that, that's what we talk about, like inside our Wealth Academy, and the teachings and stuff, because we teach concepts. But whenever you're working and developing your concepts, it's like it's like a scripture, right? Because as you change and grow, what you read today will be different tomorrow, because you're growing.
Absolutely.
It meets you where you are.
Yes.
As you grow. It's so powerful. It's such a powerful concept that most people, to your point, like whatever that is, I mean, you could read a book today, you could read a scripture, whatever, you could do a training today. And what you hear today, if you're in activity mode, next month, it will mean something completely different. And you'll hear something completely different with a different set of ears. And so that's such a great point, to always be a student and growing yourself, no matter what format or what you're doing, to, as you grow with it. So such great advice. So Lynn, like, this has been so amazing. I mean, from, single mom, homeless single mom, to be in where you are, to have an amazing husband, family, debt free, and to be a blessing, to be such a light for so many women and other, around you. I think what a beautiful story. What a beautiful story.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And, it's so incredible. Like, what a difference a day makes. Because you can sit in your stuff sometimes and just, look at what's going on in your life and really get bogged down by it. And, it's just so important to understand that tomorrow, like every day, something new can happen, and to stay optimistic and just keep doing everything that you know to do. And that's all that I could do, right? It's just keep moving forward and do the things that I knew to do to get myself out of that position, but knowing that it couldn't last forever, right? Like that, it just couldn't.
Well, and here's the beauty in this, and I love this, and this is why I wanted to build this network, for stories like yours, you know, because it was such a shame for me, because I knew all these amazing women with all these beautiful stories. And, you know, what a shame for your story to be hidden and only the people in your circle get to hear this story.
Right.
I mean, how beautiful it would be to be such an inspiration to somebody that you may not have met, you know, that's maybe in another company or maybe in another business, another whole nother realm that you would have never come into contact with. And you're like, oh my gosh, I love her story. It was such an inspiration, you know, for the single mom that's listening right now, right? For the one who's in the middle of the journey, who's like, how am I ever going to get out of this debt? Right? Is there hope? Like, such an inspiration that you can be. But to what you just said, I love is the fact that you don't have to stay in the circle that you stand in. You can get unstuck, because here's what I know. Every woman here, they have what it takes. They're good enough right now, just as they are. They're strong enough right now, just as they are. They've got what it takes to move forward. You've just got to encircle yourself around people that can see it for you, and just take a step.
Absolutely.
Just take a step out of that comfort zone. Just take one step forward. And before you know it, you're going to look back and you're not even going to believe how far you've come. And that's what what an amazing story. I love this. It says, what a story, Lynn. Thank you for sharing with us today. Congratulations on all you've accomplished.
Thank you so much. That one of the things I love that you just said that, Taylor, because, you know, sometimes when you can't see it, if you at least surround yourself with some other people who are empowering, who are, you know, strong, like this network is incredible that you have. And I really am so grateful for you inviting me here. But, you know, even if you don't have the vision, you're in a network full of some amazing, incredible women. Borrow theirs.
Exactly. Borrow theirs, borrow their vision. I love that. So what a beautiful day. I'm so inspired. I just love this. And I appreciate you so much for being on. And ladies, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for participating with us today. You know, tag somebody that you know that could be inspired by Lynn's story and her vision today. And so as soon as we launch, we're getting ready to launch. It's coming. It's right around the corner. We're going to be launching here with the founding members here, that you can have an opportunity to be a founding member of the She Network. And then we're going to have, I've got a training platform, and you're going to get to hear from Lynn. She's going to do a special training inside of that. You're going to get to see all about that. But anyway, that is it for us. Thank you all for being here. Thank you so much, Lynn. And I'm going to just hang on just a second. I'll say you privately. And that's it for us. Tuesdays with Taylor here in the She Network. And that's it for us. Bye, ladies.
Bye, everyone.